Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 716 of the Juicebox Podcast. On today's episode, we'll be speaking with Cate. She is a type 1, and this is an After Dark episode. At any point in the next hour or so, you are going to hear Cate and I talk about drugs, sex, alcohol, mental health, self-harm, suicide attempts, diabetes, and much more. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you have type 1 diabetes and are a U.S. resident or are the caregiver of someone who is a U.S. resident, I'd love it if you go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and fill out the survey. Survey should take you fewer than 10 minutes. It will ask you really simple questions about type 1 diabetes, and your answers will benefit people living with type 1. It benefits the show when you complete the survey. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Today's podcast is also sponsored by Touched by Type 1. Go to touchedbytype1.org. Go to their programs tab, click on it, and find out about the big event they have coming up in Orlando on August 27th, one that I'll be speaking at, touchedbytype1.org. The podcast today is also sponsored by the Contour Next One blood glucose meter. You'll learn more and be able to get started right now at contournext.com/juicebox.
How did you want me to, it's not so much like, is it one of those, okay, so I've never introduced myself as a diabetic. So to start off, this is a very bizarre experience for me, I'll be honest. And so am I just like, hi, I'm Cate, and I've been a type 1 diabetic for, I don't even know how long I've been a type 1 diabetic for. A long time.
Cate,
I don't even know how long I've been a type 1 diabetic for yet, Scott. That's awful.
Well, Cate, I have an idea. Why don't we take the last 30 seconds of you rambling and make that your introduction? How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. So everybody, this is Cate. All right. Well, let's figure it out, Cate. How old are you?
This is probably the basis of my problems. I'm 36, turning 37, and I was diagnosed either when I was 11 or 12, and my mom can't even confirm either. Let's make a round number because round numbers are easier.
So you're not 1,000% sure how old you are, but now you're down to being 36, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Do
yeah.
You know what year you were born?
85, so totally 36.
See?
Maths is very important. That's why they teach it to you in school.
The math always holds up. So, okay,
yeah,
so you're 36. Now, you were diagnosed either when you were 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And your mom's not sure either.
Oh, God, no. No, not at all. This is how, like diabetes, it's significant, but it's not significant to me. I'm sure that, if that makes any sense.
We'll figure this all out. Don't worry, Cate. By the time this is over, we'll all know exactly why everything is what it is and why it's not what it's not. I was interviewing somebody the other day, and like 45 minutes into it, she's like, "Oh my God, this is like therapy, and you've just unwoven, like everyone knows me now." And I was like, "Yep."
Yeah.
She's like, "I didn't know this was going to happen." I was like, "Well, here we are."
But that's nice, though. That's nice.
I find my favorite moments are at the ends of episodes when people are like, "I could send you my copay if that would be reasonable." That's okay. It's like,
that's okay.
Yeah, I'm all right over here. All right, so there's a little noise coming through your microphone. I have to decide if you're touching something or if it's just noisy.
I'm not touching anything either, but I've moved the cord onto the desk as opposed to into my lap. So if I'm moving,
no, it just sounds like, I don't know how to put it. What was that?
Oh, that was just me adjusting my headset, but this is the first time I've done it.
Sit perfectly still, Kate. Stare straight ahead. Stare at a point in front of you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think it was that. I think the headset's a little noisy. I'm not sure why.
Probably, yeah. Probably here. Let me adjust it so that it's like tighter on my head.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right.
How's that?
Yeah, it's fine. Just don't futz with it.
Okay.
All right.
I'll be a non-fusser.
I said futz. You don't know Yiddish?
Oh.
I mean, fuss.
I don't know Yiddish. Oddly enough, it's not a language I've come across yet.
I don't really know much of it either. There's a couple of favorite words I have.
We've been I've lived in country. Well, not lived. I've been to countries that are supposed to speak Yiddish, but I don't think I've ever heard it, to be fair. But I also don't know what it sounds like. So I don't know if I've ever heard it.
These are just the words my Jewish friends throw around in conversation. So I don't really know many of them either. But all right, here we go. So diagnosed 11 or 12. I don't think it matters either. And you're saying that this is an indication that diabetes was not made like front and center in your life. But do you mean that in a bad way, or do you mean that in a healthy way?
I think it could be both. I think it could be both. The first few years that I was diagnosed, it was a thing. My mother very much made it a thing. But not but like I took the reins. So they weren't my personality doesn't allow, I'm a control freak. So my personality wouldn't allow them to have any control over it whatsoever. So I basically took the reins on my health. And kind of how I was the one that gave the insulin. I was the one that did, figured out what I needed to eat and all that jazz. They kind of brought me the tools, but I was the one that went through it and figured out.
Okay. Did that work out?
So it did and it didn't. I think it's hard to say just because there's so much that's happened, and I was not really, I don't want to say normal, but I had a lot of mental health issues and what have you. So there's a lot of things that happen that could potentially have been because of the diabetes, or it was made worse because of the diabetes, so it's hard to say that mismanagement, because there definitely was mismanagement with my diabetes, but it probably played a stronger part because my mental health was so deteriorated that I used it as a tool to self-harm, really. So so control probably needed to be had from my parents, but it's really hard to control me. So I pity them for having to kind of put up with any of that nonsense when I was growing up, because it was a fight and a half for them.
All right.
So it's one of those things. It's I also think that because it's not front and center, I have great control now, and it's, and I really don't, I think about it, but it's not what I think about the most. It's just something that I live with, and it is what it is. And so I think that that's I think that that's healthy for me. And I'm not sure that I would have that way of thinking if I hadn't gone through the shitness of, my teenage years, if that makes.
Okay, I'm already enjoying being inside of your mind, because you just did a thing that was fascinating. You spoke in 17 circles, but got through all of your thoughts in a way that I understood and came back to the original question, which I was not expecting. I have to tell you, when we got inside of the fourth concentric circle, I was like, there's no way she remembers what I asked her, right? And then at the end, you're like, so, and I was like, God damn, she buttoned it up. I was like, that was both frightening and really impressive. I'm going to enjoy knowing you. Okay, hold on a second. So prior to the type 1 diabetes, were there mental health issues then?
Yeah, so it started coming about. I started realizing it, or it started making itself known when I was about 10. So 10 was when I started self-harming. Mm-hmm. I was younger than that when I started to just get into loads amount of trouble. So I started getting in trouble when I was in grade 3, however old that is. Started wrecking things and like lighting things on fire by the time I was in grade 4 and 5. Grade 6, I had like interactions with police. Like, so I've been,
Kate, let's
so
skip
like
over
I've
things.
been
Hold on. What did we light on fire? What did we light on
fire?
fire?
Oh my gosh. So we there's been like little bonfires in a park, like that where I used to live.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one. So like the cops pulled over. My dad at the time where I used to live, before we amalgamated to become like a bigger city, my dad was a firefighter. So it's not like I and like 2 of my uncles were police officers. My other uncle's like an RCMP. So my family is well embedded in the public service. So I don't know why I thought I could get into trouble without my parents never finding out. But used to light a whole bunch of fires in parks and like behind our schools and like picnic tables, and used to damage school property all the time and all that jazz.
Do you think that the people listening know you're Canadian now? Because I do. And I'm
RCMP.
I'm super impressed with myself because my brain actually said Royal Canadian Mounted Police when you gave the acronym. And I was like, I've been doing this podcast a long time. I was like, of course, RCMP. I know exactly what we're talking about right now.
So much sense. Yeah.
And she's Canadian, which now makes sense too. So you're lighting things on fire. Are you attention seeking, or can you look back with any perspective on it?
No, I just used to, no, it was never attention seeking. It was just, I genuinely, I don't know. I have like an impulse. Like I've got a lot of impulse issues.
Okay.
And I don't think of consequences. So I fall in line a lot, kind of with like any social personality disorder. So the common things where people like it gives them conscious thought of maybe this isn't a good idea, I don't have. And so it's just, sure, it's like, why not? Why would we not do these things?
Right. Let's see if the monkey can eat the snake. Yeah. Okay. Do your parents do anything about it?
I feel like there was a summer there where I was grounded the most of it, but I never had issues being by myself. So it was never a punishment. Like not being with friends was never a punishment for me because I am comfortable by myself and I'm comfortable in a crowd. So,
but they didn't send you to a physician or a therapist?
Oh gosh, like absolutely.
Oh, okay.
And when I started getting older, like it's the hospital close to us, the children's hospital, it's called CHIO. And so as my mental health continued to deteriorate, I started going into programs via CHIO. So like a lot of like group therapy. I've had to go to management classes as well.
Do they help?
So like all these kind of programs, they help now. They didn't help at the time.
Okay.
So it's definitely, I think all the programs that I've been through, I didn't feel the benefit at the time, but I feel the benefit now as it's something that I do go back. Like I said, because I struggle with impulse issues and I have a really bad temper to the point where I see like red and black and can absolutely like black out and not remember what was going on. Before I get to that like combustible state, I definitely reflect back on like the lessons that I've learned through outreach programs to be able to try and be I don't want to say normal person, but like a person that can behave in society.
You're like, I don't want to shoot all the way for normal, but
like normal is boring. I don't want to do that. And I think that normal is just like a societal construct that isn't actual true. So I hate using that word, but I think what everyone deems as a normal way to interact with society is kind of the tools that people try to thrust upon me that I do tend to look back on.
What, can I ask you, is that a colloquialism like see red, or do you like, does it actually in your vision, or is it just a way of saying that you're just blindingly angry and it doesn't, nothing matters?
It pulses. I can't explain it other than it's like the entire, you kind of get it watching a movie when they're doing like a point of view, or like not even a movie. I guess it's like a video game, like the first person shooter games where they've been injured and the screen pulses and it kind of goes red on the frame and the image pulses. That's kind of what it's like. And then a lot of it I genuinely don't remember, and it doesn't last long. It's not like it lasts for like an hour or anything like that, but there's definitely long moments or long minutes where you just kind of have no idea what's going on because you're blindingly angry. And it really is like you're blindingly angry that you just kind of black out about what's going on. And then you kind of come to and you're like, oh, I just threw like a huge temper tantrum, but it's bananas.
Can it happen over anything, or does it have to be a big thing that drives you there?
It can generally it's like definitely a build up. So again, it's one of those things where I have to go back to like anger management classes, and they at first they kind of push like go to your head place or count or deep breaths and stuff like that. And so it happens more during like high stress times. So if there's a lot going on and I'm severely stressed, it's a buildup of those stressful moments. So it could be over something really small, but it's like a building effect. It's not like everything is fine and dandy and then suddenly I snap. It's a lot of progressive moments.
Right. Empty tissue box, the 30th thing that's gone wrong could be the tipping point, but
exactly,
just not the empty tissue box on its own.
Exactly.
Have you ever hurt yourself or somebody else during one of these moments?
Not somebody else. Have I wanted to? Absolutely. Myself, yeah, just because like I've punched walls, I've punched like brick walls, I put my fist through drywall. But generally I'll like smash something. For the most part though, I'm quite clear that I need to be left alone. My mother and I used to have a lot of these blowouts. And I used to like keep telling her that she needs to leave me alone because I will physically harm her if she just needs to leave me alone for 10 minutes to calm down, and then we can resume, because I feel like I'm going to combust, and I don't want to deal with that.
Do you have do you have a diagnosis from anybody about that? Like what it is?
Like they've tried to diagnose me throughout the years. So I've seen like several social workers and psychiatrists and psychologists, and doctors, and I've been admitted and, discharged and stuff like that. So I'm sure that there's quite a few diagnostics running around. They're kind of tied up into like a whole bunch of things. Like, it just really.
Do you identify anyway?
Generally, because the like antisocial personality disorder has probably been pushed around a lot, I don't identify it as it, but much like how the first thing when I'm introducing myself, like when I was telling you, like I've never introduced myself as, hi, I'm Cate, and I've been a type 1 diabetic for X amount of years. It's the same with that, is that it's not something that I'm like, hi, I'm Cate, and I'm a mental case a lot of the time. It's bizarre to me. I don't find that I define myself because I don't know how to do. That's bizarre to me. I don't allow my personality or the things that have happened to me to define myself. And I feel like when I start putting titles to things, that whilst it can be empowering, I find that it's also something to hide behind and what have you. So I'm very upfront with my mannerisms and how I deal with situations, but putting a label to it or being like, this is what I am is bizarre things to come out of my mouth. If that makes any sense.
No, it does. So because I'm looking at it's, the definition of antisocial personality disorder. Do you not associate yourself with its description, or do you have I'll read it for people. Antisocial personality disorder is personality disorder characterized by a long-term pattern of disregard for or violation of the rights of others, as well as a difficulty sustaining long-term relationships. Does that describe you?
No, but I'm really good at, because I'm married, so I'm technically in a long-term relationship right now.
Yeah, they qualify marriages.
Sorry?
I said marriages qualify as long-term.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of the interactions I have is learned behavior. My mother will be the first one to tell you that I'm not an empathetic character. So she would definitely be like, yes, actually, a lot of the symptoms of this is how my daughter is. And as I can see there's definitely similarities. It makes sense when going through from start to finish, kind of the patterns of how things have happened. Everyone's like, yeah, no, that's what you are. This is your diagnosis. This is what you are. And I'm like, yeah, okay. That's, I guess, I don't know. Sure.
How long have you been married?
So we got married in 2019. I've been with Tyler since 2015.
Right.
Since 2015, the beginning of 2015.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question. This question is only based on my history of talking to other people, not on anything about you. Does he have any issues?
No. He's the most normal person I've ever been with.
Okay. And so,
is that
a distinction?
It's crazy.
I don't know how normal everybody else was. Maybe that's
he's just he's a very it's everyone who meets him. I don't think that they're surprised, but I think there's been a lot of people that are like, this is not who I pictured. He's so he's South African. I think he's South African, so he definitely has been raised differently. Mm-hmm. But he's like a accountant. He's an introvert who is a gamer. He's a complete opposite, polar opposite of me, in every way, shape, and form. And he's stable, and he doesn't have trauma and all that jazz. So
right.
The most stable person that I have ever had in my life. It's bizarre to experience.
When you have diabetes and use insulin, low blood sugar can happen when you don't expect it. Gvoke HypoPen is a ready-to-use glucagon option that can treat very low blood sugar in adults and kids with diabetes ages 2 and above. Find out more. Go to GvokeGlucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used in patients with pheochromocytoma or insulinoma. Visit GvokeGlucagon.com/risk. Did you know that it's possible that the blood glucose meter you have right now is not as accurate as is available? Did you know that at contournext.com/juicebox, you may find the Contour Next One blood glucose meter cheaper than it would even be coming through your insurance? That is a possibility. Why don't you go look? contournext.com/juicebox. As soon as you get there, there's a big kind of yellowy button that says buy now. If you click on it, it takes you to all different options online. Rite Aid, Target, Kroger, CVS, Walgreens, Amazon, Walmart, and more. Just clicky if you want to buy. I'll tell you what, I'm going to click on the Amazon link for what they call fun. Takes you right to a Contour Next page where you can get strips, meter, etc. Let me click on the strips. Oh, look at that. I can just add them to my Amazon cart. Very reasonably priced, I believe. Interesting. Anyway, maybe you're paying less through your insurance, maybe you're not, but you owe it to yourself to check it out. You also owe it to yourself to make sure you're using an accurate blood glucose meter. And the Contour Next one is just that. It's the meter my daughter's been using for years. It is 100% I'm holding my hand up like I'm in court and I'm getting ready to testify, right? Best meter I've ever used. Most accurate meter I've ever used. Easiest to hold, handle, see, use. Great test strips, second chance testing. You can't go wrong. contournext.com/juicebox. Lastly, don't forget at touchedbytype1.org, you go to the programs tab, then to annual conference, and there you can get your free ticket to Touched by Type 1's annual conference on Saturday, August 27th at the Loews Portofino Bay Hotel at Universal Orlando from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I know I'm going to be there making a lot of talking about diabetes. I hope to see you there. touchedbytype1.org. All right, let's settle back in. There is a ton of podcasts left, and Cate is a great guest. She is very open and honest. This is a good one. Here we go. Well, are there aspects of your personality that would feel fun if I was in a personal relationship with you?
Oh God, I'm a blast.
Yeah, are we having sex? And I'm like, Cate, I have an idea about this lamp, and you're like, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Genuinely. Yeah. I'm like, absolutely. There's nothing that I would turn down. Like, I will absolutely try everything once. And I am always like, so Tyler, and he'll say it too. It's like the reason he's had the kinds of adventures that he's had is mostly because of me. Like, so he's seen a lot of the world because of me, because I'm like, hey, I have an idea. Let's go to like Spain for the weekend. So we used to live abroad. So we used to live UK. So it would be nothing for me to be like, yeah, we're going to Spain for, in 2 days for 3. So, pack a bag and we're going. And he'd be like, oh, okay. Or we would go on like a 10 country, drive, like road trip, and not book anything until we actually landed in the country. And that is completely normal behavior. So
you drive him away from his comfort and expand him. Does he drive you towards his normalcy at all?
I think so too. I think he does. Like, I think he's calming. And so, when I start to spiral, because I don't understand, I don't understand a lot of, people's reactions to things. I don't understand them. So he'll have to explain, like if I'm having a back and forth with my mother. It's case in point. We used to, when we were getting married, my father passed away a few years ago. And my mother was still grieving, or she still is grieving. She'll probably be grieving for the rest of her life. But, she was feeling like we were paying more homage to him than her, and she was still around, and I didn't feel that way because she's still around and she's able to physically, enjoy the moment with me and be there, whereas mine wasn't. And so logically to me, her feelings just didn't make sense. And so when she would start crying and what have you, I used to have to, at the end, go to Tyler and be like, is she being dramatic? Like, is she being unreasonable, or is this a normal behavior? And so he has to explain interactions that I have with people so that I can logically understand the way that they're reacting.
That's
so that it makes sense to me.
And after experiencing it with her, does it not make sense to you the second and third time?
Yeah, it does. So it's like I said, a lot of my reactions to people is learned behavior. So generally, he can tell, and a lot of people can tell because I'm super awkward if I don't respond correctly, or the way that most people respond is most likely because I haven't encountered the situation before. So a lot of my reactions, or like what is deemed as a empathetic response, isn't actually any empathy that I feel for them. It's a learned behavior that I have had to learn and go back to in order to, survive.
That's society. The first frightening thing you've said so far. The rest of it, I've been all right. Like, I've been like, I understand. You're like, I have to pretend to be empathetic. I'm like,
yeah, like, oh, that's crazy. Yeah, but it's genuinely like, and it's not like I always have to explain to. I was like, I'm not like a Ted Bundy, because it like a Ted Bundy or like what's something Dahmer?
Jeffrey Dahmer. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's sort of, it's not, I'm not them, and not like I purposely go out to hurt people, or anything like that. But I don't have empathy is not a reaction that is something that I feel towards things and people and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's something that I have to practice at. But
you see that as something you should be doing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and like I said, like or otherwise, if I didn't, then I wouldn't be reflecting, or I wouldn't have like a cache of things to say to people already handy. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you didn't give a shit, then you wouldn't put in the time and effort with people who are close to you to make them feel like you care, because I genuinely do feel like I do care about people.
But it's not your reaction.
It's just not the first reaction. I have to work at it is really what it comes down to.
Does it bother you personally that you don't feel that way?
No, not at all.
It wouldn't. It bothers you because you know that society expects it, and because Tyler has explained it to you.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have any trauma in your life when you were younger?
Not anything to like write a book about or anything like that. I grew up, I'm a relatively normal person. I grew up with both parents, and other than like having large conflict with my dad, but that was just him and I had a lot of the same, we have a lot of the same traits just in personalities. So
Mm-hmm.
we have very big personalities. So we take up a lot of space in small rooms. So there was a lot of conflict with him. And then there was a lot of conflict with my mother, because my mother loves to get into things, and it's like a dog at a bone, just doesn't leave it be. And so we would have a lot of conflict, and we're both females and we're both growing up. So I don't think that there are many instances where a daughter and mother don't have conflict, especially in teenage years where like hormones are amok and all that jazz. But my dad was a workaholic. And so it was my mom who was always around, who had to deal with the mental health of her daughter, which was really destructive. So I didn't give any of them a hard time, but an easy time, sorry.
Yeah.
So there's conflict in that way, but no, my brain just is not wired the way that most brains are in terms of.
So the big ones, the big ones, like high stress environment, a sudden violent death, witnessing bodily harm to another person at a young age, domestic abuse, violence, physically attacked, assaulted. He didn't live through a natural disaster. He didn't have to run from a hurricane, like nothing.
No.
Nothing.
I've been through, like, have witnessed things since, but like nothing that would be the triggering point for bizarre behavior, I guess.
Okay. All right. And you and your father similarly wired?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Except he's experienced more trauma than I ever have. But yeah, absolutely similarly.
So he
wired.
Experienced trauma.
He was a firefighter. And he, at the end of his days, he was definitely, he drank a lot more. Like, he definitely experienced a lot of PTSD, undiagnosed, but he drank a lot more. And the things I'm sure any like emergency person would ever experience is traumatic, especially when you're like working in a bigger city than most. So,
but do you think that he mirrored some of that? Like, did you mirror it off of him, do you think?
No. And I think, like, I don't think he had, like, I think he was very empathetic. I don't think in the sense that we weren't the same people in terms of how we reacted to, and how we reacted or how I'm trying to think of, him and I dealt with situations similarly, but I don't think it's because we were similarly wired. And I think because he was super always cool, calm, and collected. Like, it didn't matter what was going on. He was always the calm one. So if I injured myself, he'd be like, yeah, okay, so this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to deal with it. And like, always be like, boom, boom, boom. This is the plan. This is what we're doing. Whereas my mom would be in hysterics, right?
Okay.
And so that's how my brain automatically works that way. Is that like, okay, so this is the problem. These are the things we need to consider. This is what we're going to be doing. This is how it's going. Like, should be the outcome. That's not the outcome. This is plan B. This is plan C. Like, my brain automatically lists that quickly whenever I'm going through any kind of situation. So whether it's like whether someone's just broken their arm or gotten into a car accident, or whether I am choosing like a tile for backsplash of a kitchen, like that is generally always how my brain works. I don't know if that's how my dad's brain always worked, or if that's just how he was trained, but it's just, so we reacted to a lot of things similarly, but I don't know if it was based on personality or just because that's how he was trained.
Does the way your mom thinks bother you, even away from like personal issues? Like, if she helped you pick the backsplash, the way she would talk about it would piss you off.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear
always.
I
yeah.
see what's going on. Okay.
And my mom has more trauma than I do. So she's grown up with trauma. And she's very empathetic. Like, she feels everyone's emotions, and she feels hers wholeheartedly. So she's like she's got this huge heart.
Polar bear attack your mom lived through?
Yeah. Yeah. And she has illnesses herself, but it's basically how my mom deals with things drives me batty, like absolutely batty.
She has physical illnesses?
She does, yeah. So she has chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, and she has depression as well. So it's definitely something that runs in the family. The chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia is the big ones. The big one. So and she uses it as a crutch. Whereas I think that's also a thing with, like, so I am a type 1 diabetic, and I also have Crohn's. And then I've also had, mental illness for more than the majority of my life. And those have never held me back or kept me back, nor have I ever used them as an excuse not to do anything. So we differ greatly there. And I definitely struggle to see eye to eye with her in most things in that regard.
How old were you when your dad passed?
He died in 2012. I'm 36, so it's going to be so it's going to be 10 years. So I was about 26 when he died.
Okay. All right. So hold on. That was a lot. Just give me a second.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I'm just trying to keep it all straight in my head. That's all. And know where to go next. Okay, so you took care of your diabetes through your childhood.
Yeah.
What kind of outcomes did you have for type 1? I mean, were you going to appointments, or like how was it?
Yeah. So, and it's also like I'm from Ontario. I live I grew up in Ottawa. So our healthcare system obviously is, not only are we different from other provinces, but obviously we're vastly different from the US. So definitely was going to appointments because they don't cost me any money. So like it's simple. Like I never had to put it through insurance, none of that. And anything that did go through insurance, because I was dependent upon my father, who is a firefighter, our insurance was covered 100%.
Okay.
So definitely went to appointments like twice a year, I think was the standard, every 6 months, got my blood work done, went through like the diabetic programs and stuff like that. So that was always a thing. The first year or two, I was where I needed to be. Like my A1Cs was in like the sixes. And then as my mental health deteriorated, so did my diabetes. So the worse I got, in one regard, it happened with the other one as well. So
Okay.
I ended up being diagnosed with neuropathy by the time I was just before I turned 18. So CHEO is where I went for my diabetes. They were going to keep me past I was 18. So because it's a children's hospital, they tend to only keep you till you're 18 before they migrate you over to an adult situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so they thought just because of how deteriorated I was with my mental health and with my diabetes, that it would be smart to kind of keep me on for a little bit longer just to make the transition a little bit easier. But the second that I was diagnosed with neuropathy, they had to cut ties because they said that they're a children's hospital and they don't
See that
neuropathy is not something that children get diagnosed with.
So these 6A1Cs, how long did they last before they got to the point where they were causing neuropathy? Like when you said your mental health deteriorated and then your diabetes care followed along with it, what age does that happen at?
So probably things got really bad when I was about 14. So probably about 2 or 3 years into being a diabetic.
Okay.
And then they just kept getting worse. So having my A1Cs in the 12s and 13s was nothing. That was the norm.
So you were not giving yourself insulin at all? Were you just doing short, long acting?
I think it was just I was MDI. When I was first diagnosed, you basically pulled straws to see if you would be on 2 needles a day or 3. And so I pulled the 2 needles a day straw. Genuinely, that was how you had to do it. You had to pull a straw.
You were just it was random luck at the doctor's office, you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because they only had so much insulin for one thing or the other?
I have no idea. I genuinely have no idea. I don't know. I have no idea the thought process behind it. It was very bizarre. How it is now and how it was then is, I feel probably night and day. It's same with the mental health. You know what I mean? I think, I think everything is night and day from how it used to be to how it currently is. I hear CHEO has a great diabetic program. I have never been a part of that. I didn't have a great experience with CHEO and their diabetic program. I have great experience with CHEO and their mental health programs, but not so much their diabetes one. So
you're doing regular and MPH or Toronto and whatever they call it, right? Yeah. Yeah. And you're just, are you even doing that by the time you're 14?
Yeah. So was still taking my insulin, but wasn't sticking to the food. So when I was diagnosed, we were on 2 starches, 2 fruits, 2 that. I don't even know what it's called anymore, but it was that kind of meal plan. But definitely ate whatever I want, whenever I wanted, at any point in time.
So you were eating well past what the insulin was well past.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And then high blood sugars that I imagine would make your situation worse, no, with your mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing with high blood sugar, it works the same as an alcoholic, right? So the more, when you become used to it, your body gets used to it.
Right.
So
you don't notice it as much.
Oh God.
Right.
So even now, now that I'm in normal range where I'm supposed to be, the second I go over 9, I feel nauseous. I don't feel well. I can physically feel it. Whereas back then, if I was at 9, I felt jittery and weird because it's the lowest that I
felt
would be.
Low to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. You said as my mental health deteriorated, what deteriorated? Where do you go from setting fires and being combative and what happens next?
Being bananas. So as I attempted suicide, I started talking about it. I think I was 14, and then I attempted suicide when I was either 14 or 15. And so it's how I ended up within CHEO in their mental health programs. Okay. So I was self-harming well before then, and I was self-harming well after. And And I don't think I realized it at a time, but I think I used my diabetes as another form of self-harm, right? Like, so if I'm not obviously taking care of myself one way, then I'm sure it's not going to be taking care of myself the other way, right? Or if I already had plans to end my life, why would I
Make it a great
continue?
bolus? Yeah. Just
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I hear you.
Like that, it's silly. It makes no sense. So, but genuinely, I think my mom like bawled her brains out after like every birthday I had since I was like 21. She doesn't anymore, but like she would a bit of an all. She even said it during the speech when I like at our reception, our wedding reception. She didn't obviously go into detail, but she's like, we did not think that she would make it here. Like, I did not think that she would be this age and marrying this wonderful man, you know?
Right.
And a lot, like all of my doctors said the same thing. Like in hindsight, obviously not when I'm going through it. They weren't like, yeah, you're not going to survive, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But all of them have said, like, we did not think that you would make it out of your teenage years. Like, we didn't think you'd hit 20 and 21.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, I was an absolute mess of a person. And I got like, so I was through to when I was going through school, I was going through the Catholic board, even the Catholic board, and I wasn't showing up for school. Like, I was not going to school at all. So even the Catholic board, like, kindly told my mother, I don't think it's a good idea that she returns here because we don't have the capabilities of being able to support her.
Yeah.
And then, which is a good thing because I went to the public board who did, and I ended up in like a spec ed kind of course with this woman named Mrs. Innes, who's like a godsend. She's like this Scottish awesome woman who was like the first woman who was like, no, you are going to survive past this. Like, you are going to, you know, become old and gray and have babies. Like, you are absolutely going to make it through everything. And she was like the first one who ever said that.
Does it start becoming like a self-fulfilling prophecy at some point where you just like, look, this is going wrong and this is going wrong? Like, do you think you were leaning into it at points as well?
Probably. And I think it's hard, like, not to, like, it's hard to not be like, well, I mean, and it goes with the same with like decision making as well, right? Like, so if I already have an impulse issue and I already think that I'm probably going to die, like, yeah, of course I'm going to do really stupid because I'm not going to be around long enough to deal with any of the consequences, right? So absolutely probably leaned into it far. Yeah.
So then what, I mean, did this lead to any, do you have any personal issues? Like, did they become, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Did you become, I've heard of, the word seems wrong. I know, but the word feels wrong.
Yeah.
Do you become promiscuous?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And that used to be like the running joke in the family, which sounds absolutely bananas. But like my aunt, whenever we used to get together, she'd be like, "So who's the flavor of the week?" And I'd be like, "Well, several." Absolutely became promiscuous. Like, got very because I think it was a part because you just do. And when you don't feel a whole lot inside, or when you're feeling kind of dead. You're kind of looking for something that feels good, right? And you're looking for it often. So again, that comes with the impulse. You kind of get a rush. Yeah, I'm going to have this rush because really it's the only way that I'm feeling anything. And yeah, I'm going to have sex because I know what the gratification afterwards is. And what, even if it lasts for only a few moments, at least I've got it and then move on, right?
Yeah.
Drug addicts feel the same way. It's why they go after their next hit, right? Because they're just looking to just feel something other than what they continuously already feel.
Right.
So it works the same way. Absolutely went to drugs as well. Like I said, like any way to kind of just step out of my life for 5 seconds, I was on that train and riding it hard.
Well, let me ask you a question before we get into that. So, actually, let me say this first. I realized while you were talking, I didn't want to say the word because I was afraid people would think that I was asking you just because you're a girl.
Oh, no.
And I would have asked you if you were a guy too. I just like it
no.
because it seems like a date, like, to me, like, sex is weird, right? Like, if you do it with somebody you really know, that seems reasonably as safe as it could possibly be. If you, you have a one night stand once in a while, like, I get even that seems reasonable. But if you start bouncing around to multiple people, like, you're putting yourself potentially in a harmful situation, either physically or maybe even like with your health, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Did any of those things ever go badly? Did you ever like find yourself somewhere thinking like, I got to get out of here? Or
absolutely. And and even just in relationships as well. Right. So whenever you don't, if you stop putting yourself first, you're going to start getting into relationships where they also don't put you first either. And so it's very easy for you to find yourself in
like a commodity in somebody else's story.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like you're just a thing, right? And a lot of the time I thought myself like, it's bizarre because I used to be like, well, it's a power. Like if men can feel this way, why can't I? But I think whilst I still stand by that point as well, is that I feel like the second, it's kind of like probably why you felt uncomfortable asking me because I'm a female, but you would have said the same thing to a male as well. I feel like, because you were saying that what other people would think, because other people view women who are promiscuous very different than men do, right? So I think it was a whole bunch of things. I think it was because I didn't really value myself, but I also think it was kind of like a f you to people as well, like, why can't I do this? If I am consensual, why can't I? Why can they? Why can't I? Why am I treated different? Or why am I looked at different? Why am I called a slut? But this is getting like props because he's just, banged his, 3-number chick. Like I gotta tell you, no sense to me.
I've known a couple of those guys and they seemed as broken as anybody else who would. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe people see it that way, but if you really know them, I don't know how you would see it that way.
Exactly.
They were doing the same exact thing as you're describing. They're just, they're doing the entering instead of being entered is the only real difference between what they were chasing and what you were describing. So
exactly.
Right.
Like generally I find people who do it, it's a void that they're missing. Like there's a void in their life and they're just trying to fill it however temporarily. So,
right. Okay. So how hard of drugs are we talking about? Like where does that start? And
so, marijuana or like any cannabis product was probably how it started, and how it ended was with cocaine.
Okay.
And that's that. So yeah.
How long did that part last for, or is it still going on? Or
no, so it's not. So I've I shouldn't say drug free, although I don't really deem cannabis as anyway. I haven't snorted coke or had coke in any way, shape, or form since I was about 21 or 22. So that's the last time. Cannabis products, it's weird for me because I definitely view it for myself, not in every situation, because I want to make that very clear because people use that as a weapon. Cannabis definitely was a gateway drug for me into that lifestyle. So it opened doors to different people that I probably wouldn't have met had I not started smoking weed.
So you're not saying that the weed is like, see, I think the way people think of it is that the weed's like not strong enough, so they search for something else. But what you're saying is you get put in situations where you meet people.
Yeah.
And then those people have stronger drugs. Yeah. And then the whole vibe just pulls you towards it.
Yeah. And I think it's different for other people. And it's what I mean, because it's different. I think people who are against it, no matter what, weaponize it, and they don't really understand the differences between it. I think, yes, I think cannabis can be used as a gateway drug in the sense that they're looking for something stronger. I also feel like it can, or at least it used to, not so much here now, obviously, because we have legalized, or at least legalized. Yeah. We've legalized cannabis. So it's obviously a different conversation in our society, or in our Canadian society now.
Yeah.
But back then, that it used to open doors to people that you wouldn't have had interactions with otherwise, so
yeah, I feel like there's maybe two different people in that scenario where, like there are probably plenty of people who would use cannabis in some way or another in their life and never move on to anything else.
Yep.
And there are other people who were going to get to the cocaine no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that how it seems to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean is that I hate when it gets weaponized, because it's not, I think it's the person, not the actual drug of choice,
right.
really.
Right. So if 1 million people are using or are using cannabis, and I don't know, 100,000 of them end up using cocaine, the answer isn't 1 out of 10 people, the answer is that 100% of the people who want or enjoy or need weed want, enjoy, and need it, and 100% of the people who are going to make it to cocaine make it to cocaine, not that one makes it to the other. Well, I mean, listen, that makes a lot of sense to me. So, all right, but you were on a quick ride, 14, 15, 16 to 21. Like, there's a lot happening in there. How do you get off of that train?
I actually have no I don't know what the turning point was. When I was 20 or 21, I was diagnosed with Crohn's. I was on, so when I was on, went to cocaine. By the time I was 18, I was fully into morphine, which is not, I don't feel like I ever really abused morphine, but definitely was on a ton of morphine. I was on morphine because of the neuropathies. So I was in loads of pain. So I was like crippled for 6 months. I was not able to walk or fully function. So I was kaput. Because I was kaput, I wasn't really doing drugs at that point, but I was up to my eyeballs in morphine. I was up to my eyeballs in morphine because literally no other drug would take the edge off. I was on like so much morphine, I still had to go into the hospital to get intravenous of morphine just so that the edge could be taken off, and I could even just sleep for 2 hours. And then shortly after, I was diagnosed with Crohn's, and then was put on steroids. And then my diabetes really took like a huge turn because of steroids. So I just started going down this rabbit hole of health issues that the rest of the stuff kind of just started dropping off a bit. I think that, and that's really all that it is that,
where are you living during this?
I'm still at home during all of this. All
right. So you're so sick. The neuropathies got you so screwed up that you're on morphine for the pain.
Yeah.
And then that sort of like, this is weird. It gets you're so loaded on the morphine, you can't do any of the other stuff in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an odd way to get saved, but okay. And then you know what I mean? And then at some point, do you then like start taking care of your blood sugars? Because do you have neuropathy now that's painful? Yeah.
So it's not as bad as it used to. And again, because I'm a control freak, and because I refuse to be on medication of any kind now, I deal with pain every day. So it's just one of those things that it's there. I deal with it. I move on. I don't really think about it. It bothers me the most when I'm at my lowest. So if I'm exhausted and I'm just because I still have bad mental health days, I will always have mental health issues because that's my brain.
Yeah.
But it doesn't all consume me anymore. So, when I am having a bad mental health day, the pain is astronomical. Like I'm most likely in bed or I'm sitting and I'm not moving for the most of the day because I'm in so much pain.
Right.
They're few and far between, but they definitely happen. But no, I live with pain every day.
But
it's just not like it used to be, I guess.
Did better blood sugars and better control with your diabetes help that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question that might seem like it's a little out of left field? And if you don't have an answer, it's fine. But why is it that most of the people who I speak to who are the most out of control so frequently describe themselves as control freaks?
No.
I mean, not for nothing. If you're a control freak, you're bad at it. So what is the, like, because there's more in there. If we dig it apart, there's more there. Like you like, they espouse all the time. Like, I'm a control freak. I have to be in charge. Like you said at the beginning, I needed to be in charge of my diabetes. You didn't do a good job of it, but you were in charge of it. I don't, it sort of like is when people tell me like, I didn't let diabetes stop me. And I'm like, okay. And then how did that go? Well, my A1C was 12.
I was a diabetic, but I definitely did not let it stop me.
I still went to the prom. It didn't stop me. I'm like, yeah, I think you're misusing that phrase. Should. Yeah. But it's stopping you just a little slower than you're aware of. And so you're not in control. Like, everything about you is out of control in this story, but you think of yourself as being very much in control. What is it you're in control of?
So probably, like, growing up, nothing really. Like, in terms of the circumstances that probably happened around it, not a whole lot. Did I feel like I was? Absolutely. I think when people
you want control, but I think that's the important thing.
And I think people use the whole, like, well, I didn't let diabetes control me, so I did this. And I think that they're doing that because they feel the most out of control. But I think they do that because they're trying to take something back from their life. Like, they want to be under the impression that they made this decision and come hell or high water, it's going to come through. But I'm not sure. Because I was like, anytime that my mother even tried to take the control out of my grasp, I would go bananas. Like, I would go sideways about it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just me floundering because it's this thing that is scary, and it's, a high potential that it could kill me because I don't have control, right?
Yeah.
That I need to grasp for any kind of control in my life. As out of control as that seems to everybody else that is looking at it from an outside point, I think that you just kind of grasp for anything at that point, however erroneous it is or however false it is, just to kind of, I don't know, pretend like things are normal or that you had control over it when you really didn't. It's just all a big fabrication in the end.
You're incredibly well thought out, Cate, for somebody who is going through all this stuff. You're a weird mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. I asked you, like, by the way, I agreed with everything you just said now. And I asked you because I thought you were going to have an answer. And I thought it would be more impactful if you said it than if I said it. But it's... Listen to me over here, like a puppet master in this conversation. But seriously, like, people want control because they're out of control. And so they choose something to feel like everything's not, beyond their whole. Yeah. Right. So, and it can be, you can see it sometimes. I mean, people change their hair color because at least they're in control of what color their hair is, or they wear really, like, nice nails.
Yep.
Right. Like, we've all, like, everyone's seen that, right? Like, somebody's horribly overweight or ill or something, and everything in their life is a disaster, but they're incredibly manicured. Their hair is perfect, and their nails are perfect, and their clothes are on point. Like, the things they can still control, they still control. But none of us see it that way. Yeah. Like, everyone self-describes as like, oh, me, I got it all together. Yeah. Except for the cocaine, I lit the park on fire.
except for the ginormous dumpster fire that is my life.
Right,
it's totally
right.
everything is on the up and up.
Do you know why they call the cops Mounties? Because they've all mounted me.
Exactly.
All the other stuff's a disaster, but you're like, but I don't know if you noticed my nails. They're beautiful.
Yeah, but I look great.
Right.
Thanks.
And so, but I don't also think that that's specific to you or me, or I think everyone has that. To some
Everybody
degree.
does that. Right. So I feel like I just keep being like, so also I have this. So I have, so when I start to spiral, I have obsessive compulsive disorder. Mm-hmm. So when I start to spiral and I start to feel the most out of control, because I will be the first one to be like, I feel out of control. But the only reason that I will be the first one to know that is because that's when my obsessive compulsive disorder really starts to show its head. So, and it's literally, it only comes about when I start to spiral out. So, and that started coming about when I thought I was in the most control of my life. Like in my teenage years, I started doing these small things, and I started doing these small things because it's what I had control over. So it's like what you said, when people will dye their hair, they do these small things just to have some sort of resemblance, like they've got control out of their, from their very chaotic lives, right?
Yeah.
And I used to, sort things by color. Okay, so I have control of this, so I'm going to have control of my life. I can control this, things are going to be okay. And it would be, okay, so I'm going to gather all the utensils together, and they have to be straight and sorted and not out of place. Okay, so got this under control. Now I've got the colors under control. Okay, I'm starting to feel like I've got control over my life, which was never, ever the case. Yeah. And yeah, it's, but to be fair though, Scott, right now I have very good control of my life.
No, one of the really great, listen, one of the reasons I'm super excited for you to be on is because you actually have a conclusion to this story. Like you're not about to we're not going to finish today and you're just going to start doing cocaine and giving a hand to the neighbor. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. So I'm going to have to bleep a lot of that out. But I got, I saw someone online the other day who said that my show was dirty. And I was like, what? And then I was like, that's interesting. And then I realized that I just talk about things that are actually happening with people. And that's why they think of it as dirty. I don't think of any of it as dirty.
No, it's not. Which is the way I had found when you had put out hey, I'm looking for some people or whatever. And it was what is seemingly taboo. And it's bizarre. I think the world is weird in the sense of what they've inherited as being, seen as taboo. And the only reason why it's taboo is because no one talks about it, but everybody goes through it.
Right.
It was weird. We just bought our first house and no one talks about money. No one talks about a mortgage. No one talks about how much money they make. No one talks about what they can and can't afford. And it's so detrimental to everybody because they don't talk about it. No one knows, no one knows what's normal. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you grow up and your neighbor's got 3 cars and a house and their kids are in college, and you don't know that means that they have to make $300,000 a year to accomplish any
genuinely.
of that. Yeah.
Genuinely, you're I don't understand this.
They're working themselves into the ground to make that money.
Exactly. And it's the same with mental health. So before, when I was growing up, the news don't do it anymore, but the news used to not report about suicide. So if someone, even famous, committed suicide, our news wouldn't really report it. Or if they report it, they wouldn't say that it was because of suicide, because it was believed that, suicide is taboo, but it's also triggering. It's not actually. And so, but it used to be such a taboo subject. And now, whilst people still aren't, it's not an everyday conversation, I think it's important that people understand that actually it's quite, a lot of people go through it, or at least have ideologies about it, or think about it at least once in their life. And it may not be, completely detrimental to their health, but it's not weird either, and so many people just feel like they're the only ones going through this, which is so annihilating to them. It makes them feel like because they are the only person, no one else will understand.
Yeah.
When Garen they probably have about 15 people in their life who have gone through something similar, but because no one talks about it,
you're never gonna know.
You're never gonna know, and then you suffer in silence. It's so weird to me. It's bizarre. It's so illogical. I don't understand it. And then people think I'm very brisk and like brash because I don't give a shit. Like if you ask me a question about anything, if I've gone through it or if I know about it, I'm going to tell you about it. And people get really uncomfortable about it, but I don't understand. Like,
well, I have some theories.
Why?
I will share some theories with you right in a second. But first, I want to say, I find it incredibly comforting that life ends, because then it makes none of this seem all that really important.
Worth it.
Yeah, then it keeps you to like. I mean, that keeps me from feeling like, oh God, like I screwed it up. It's over. Like even if I screw up my kids, they'll be dead one day too. It won't matter.
It'll be fine.
Like, eventually it'll be okay.
Exactly. They may need a little bit of therapy, but genuinely, it's okay.
No,
it's okay.
I just mean that nothing's forever. And if nothing's, I mean, honestly, Benjamin Franklin figured out a lot of things that we do. Okay, like I don't know if he wrote a book. I think he under a pen name. Poor Richard, maybe? I know this seems like a left turn, but hold on a second. Poor Richard's Almanac was a yearly almanac published by Benjamin Franklin, who adopted the pseudonym Poor Richard or Richard Saunders for the purpose. He wrote under a pseudonym. It's basically just common sense written down, right? And you go back, and I'm sure somebody might have done it before him, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth is like, we don't think about Benjamin Franklin anymore.
No.
and he really impacted people, and it's gone. Like it still exists in the ether. And I'm sure some of the things that he said back then to a small group of people got around and they started thinking that way. And he probably really impacted things. But day to day, nobody walks around going, thank God for Ben Franklin. You know what I mean? Like, so point is that none of this matters all that much. I mean, in your day to day, if you want things to be perfect, I take your point that it would be important for you not to use cocaine. But grand scheme of things, I'm comforted by that. Like that you could have a 10-year swath of your life be a shit show. And that doesn't mean that the next 10 years are going to be like that.
Exactly.
I find a lot of comfort in that. The other thing that I really enjoy talking to you, one of the reasons, is because if we make a line and we say that this is societal norms, this line, like what people understand, and everybody on the other side of that line is not acting like you, and you're acting like you on the wrong side, I'm making quotes, on the wrong side of the line. I don't know that we're all not closer to being you than people think. Yeah. So I think without some of the things that, people push back on all the time, like society and jobs and, like, oh, I've got too much responsibility. Like you didn't have any responsibility and anywhere to go. We'd all just be in like a pile of ants running around on top of each other, having sex and dying. Like it would just be happening crazy. And you just have a little bit of, your brain lacks a tiny bit of fine tuning that lets you live on the other side of that line. That's kind of how I see you. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It does.
Yeah. I don't see you as like, don't get me wrong, I don't see you as broken or like, you're just not like, something that your brain's no different than your pancreas. It just almost works and then kind of doesn't at the end.
And then kind of doesn't.
Yeah. But it's not in a way that like you're delightful. I am enjoying talking to you, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, I think
I would expect
no
else, really. Yeah. I am delightful.
We're all about two problems away from being Cate. So watch yourself while you're judging her.
Watch it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like it's I feel the same way, Scott. No. That way.
I enjoy this. Is nice. Are we doing okay for you so far?
Oh, yeah, fine.
You're good with how this is going? All right. Okay, so we don't exactly know how you got to where you are now, but you did. I'm guessing that the neuropathy put you in bed and then it took away a lot of the kind of ancillary things floating around your life and probably made it easier for you to focus on stuff. But I don't know. I can't figure it out.
And to be fair, I don't know. I also get like, I genuinely feel like I probably just got bored and was looking for something else at that point. Like I don't know what switched. I don't know. A lot of the times, I don't know if it's I'm very good at being like, this no longer works for me. I need to move on to something else. And which sounds bizarre, being like, so, drugs don't really work for me anymore. I'm going to need to, look for some other means to get gratification, but I think it is just as simple as that. It's that like, it was the same. So the first time I started smoking cigarettes, so just cigarettes, I was 10. So like I said, when things started to really get it was around 10. So I first started smoking cigarettes when I was 10. I quit smoking, I think maybe when I was like 30. So I had been smoking, it's still to this point, I have been smoking longer in my life than being a non-smoker. But it wasn't one of those like, I'm going to quit for health reasons, or I'm going to, I'm going to quit for this, or it got expensive, and I was like, this no longer does for me what it used to be, so I'm going to stop doing it. And then I stopped doing it. It's the same with drugs. This no longer suits the purpose that I initially started out for. I'm no longer going to do that anymore. And then I just stopped doing it. Did
you replace it with something?
I probably I don't even know. Like, is
this Tyler just in a corner somewhere smiling right now?
No, not at all.
Nothing like that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, I think Tyler probably just replaced sort of like the relationships that I had with men, up until him. I think the longest relationship I had was maybe 9 months or a year was the longest relationship I had. And I have no idea how many people that I like, and that's like a relationship. So like the actual title, boyfriend and girlfriend. I think I've had maybe 5 boyfriends in my life, but I've lost count. Like, I have a very healthy amount of partners who I've been with in my life, but I was getting to the point where this no longer suits my purpose anymore. Like this, I'm no longer satisfied with the way that I'm treating myself, as well as going from person to person. I don't get anything from that anymore. So Tyler kind of replaced that thing. He became my person, and
is that gross?
I settled with him.
Nice. I don't think that's a nice thing to say. I think we need
it's not it's not the way that people is because you're like, well, I had to settled for something, but I settled with him, not the me as a person, my whirlwind of how I kind of run through life finally settled when I'm with him.
Yeah, no, I understand.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. This part of your life began with him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it started definitely I really don't attribute a whole other than just like that, but because when I started traveling, it was 2009, the first time that I started traveling outside of the continent. And I think that's really what kind of took off, how I started to get a different view of the world and people and how it ticks and works and stuff like that. I've finally started not seeing I'm definitely still self-involved. I have a very healthy ego. I'm surprised I can fit through doors most days. But I started seeing other people and how they live, and it became fascinating to me, and it made me not feel as big as I actually am, that I'm actually, like you said, that we're kind of all ants. Or we would be if
so you gained some perspective
if we had no debt.
Yeah, you gained if we didn't have any debt.
Yes exactly. Yes,
two things happened there on top of each other. I apologize. But
I gained perspective of what else is outside of me, and that definitely started changing. And then I moved to the UK back in 2014. And I was still going out partying a lot, but I got my first desk job and became like an actual professional and became like an actual adult, of how people describe adults, which was weird. And things just started kind of settling that way. And that was where I started like actually taking control of my diabetes. I have not had great control for long, but like for the last decade, I've had really tight, and to me, I find myself very admirable in terms of how I've completely like 180'd my health in terms of my diabetes and my Crohn's. My Crohn's went into remission, and I started saying like no to doctors when they kept trying to shovel pills down my throat to make, me different. I started becoming more kind of self-aware of, am I doing this for a purpose? Or am I doing this for for small gratification? What is the grand scheme of all of this?
Right.
And I think that how I started viewing things and how I started making my decisions definitely changed within the last decade. And
do you have an addict's mind or no?
What mind?
Addict? Are you addicted to something else right now?
No. Right now, other than like coffee, no. But yes, I do. So I tend to stay away from, like, I've never been to Vegas because I feel like that is a dangerous place for me. I don't game because I know it's the same with like on my phone. I don't have games on my phone because I know that I know that it's very easy for me to
get lost,
go down absolutely. And not a healthy way, like in a very, very destructive way.
Right. Like sitting up late at night, like connecting dots on something.
Oh yeah. Like the Big Bang Theory, when what's her face becomes like a gamer, and she goes like 3 weeks without washing herself and like that. That would absolutely be me. But yeah, so I definitely have an addict's mind, and I'm also very compulsive. Like I become obsessive. Like I'm obsessive.
Right.
So when we were looking for the house that we bought, I spiraled looking for the house that we bought. So like something very normal, I became obsessed with, like to the point where I was probably getting maybe 2 hours of sleep every night because I was looking at houses, or like I became obsessed with it. And that was what my husband had to deal with for like a good solid year, or at least 9 months from like start to end. But that's all that I did. And like a girlfriend of mine was looking for a house at the same time. So obviously, and we had just found ours. We just put in an offer, and it was accepted. And so I was feeling like something was missing. Like I didn't know what to do with myself, because now this obsessive compulsive thing had been.
It's over.
What am I going to be doing with my life now? And so she was like, so, we're putting our house on the market. And I was like, perfect. Like, and we laugh about it because I'm like, it's something else I need to obsess over. But genuinely, that was actually the point. I was like, yes. And then, so I then started staying up until like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, sending her ads about like, here's a house.
Let me point my crazy at your problem now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, please give me a reason. Like, absolutely. Yeah.
Are you okay in silence or no?
I'm, to the point where it disturbs other people. I have no problem. I have no problem with being like I said, I have no problem being by myself in silence. I can sit and stare out the window and not have a thought cross. I'm absolutely fine being still. And I'm absolutely fine being in a crowd. And I have, it makes people uncomfortable because I've got no problem letting them sit in quiet with me. And generally people need to have some sort of white noise. They need to fill the silence with something. I hate small talk. Like the second someone starts small talking me, I get pissed off. It's like, I hate it, because the only reason they're doing it is just to fill the silence because they feel uncomfortable. I welcome uncomfortable feelings, and it brings me joy to make other people uncomfortable.
Cate, maybe they just like talking to you.
Well, I am, again, I'm delightful, so I get it, but I feel like
I'm enjoying talking to you.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Otherwise, I feel like it would be kind of weird. I feel not that you need to fill the silence, but I feel like you're very engaging, and that's what makes a good podcast. So if things started going quiet, I feel like that could be potentially awkward.
Yeah, well, you won't let me talk over you, so it doesn't. I couldn't if I wanted to.
I won't.
I've tried a couple of times. Just
I know
to get
you
a thought
have,
out,
and
you're like,
it doesn't happen. No, I know.
There's
like a funny meme that goes, "Is like, how dare someone talk over me while I'm interrupting?" Like, yeah, it gets me.
I like when people say like he talks over people. I'm like, some people will talk forever if you don't interject, and that I'm just trying to move the conversation along. But nevertheless, we are. Okay, so I want to go back to. I'm sorry, I'm going to forget myself in a second. So you just take a left turn, start taking better care of yourself. But then, how does that happen? Like, I mean, you've been living a long time with diabetes and not doing a great job of it. Like, did you know what to do and just weren't doing it, or did you have to learn what to do?
I think it's a bit of both. So, like, I went onto a pump when I started going to the adult hospital. So the one that I go to is QCH, is the short form for it. When I was 18, diagnosed with neuropathy, the diabetes nurse educator at QCH automatically put me on a pump. And I'd been fighting CHIO to be put onto a pump, and they didn't trust me to be on a pump. They didn't think it was good for my health, despite MDI obviously not working for me. And Sharon was like, yeah, no, you're going straight onto a pump. It doesn't matter. Like, this is what you need. And within like 6 months of being on a pump, it still sounds awful, but like my A1Cs went down to 9. So when I'm used to being, like 12 and 13, going down to 9, I was like, fuck yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so this is what this is like. That's cool. And then it kind of just snowballed effect from there. Like, I was like, okay, so I still wasn't great at doing it, but I was a lot better at doing it and watching kind of what I was eating. And then as I started becoming like more aware of my body and how it felt and how it reacted to things, I started being like, oh, I can feel good just by looking after myself. I don't need these outside sources to feel great. Like, if I take insulin when I'm eating, I can feel good about that. Like, I'm not going to go like super high and spike and want to vomit all over the place because my numbers are so high and I'm going into DKA. That's how diabetes works. Oh, I had no idea that this is what control looks like. Like, so it was just one of those like, oh, this is what it actually means to have control over my diabetes. I can actually like function and not feel all of the time. Got you. Okay.
Wait,
and
so
then it just kind of spiraled from that.
Yeah. Did you point you're crazy at the diabetes now?
Like, I still have a lot to learn. I still feel like there's things that I should know that I don't. Like, but my A1Cs like currently is 6.1, and it has been for the last like 3 years. It's been like 6.1 to 6.5. So I feel like that's not just by chance, or that's not just because I fudged the numbers, like I've gone, because I'm really high, I just started going really low or anything like that. To me, that's like, I think I'm getting a pretty good, I think I kind of know what I'm doing by now. It's only taken like 25 years, but I feel like, it's okay, Kate, like, cool. So I can actually start saying like, hey, no, I do have control of my diabetes, instead of that, what I was saying, when I was a teenager, being like, I need to have control because I'm a control freak. I can actually be like, but I do have control.
It's funny.
Let me show the facts.
I think of diabetes control in a really strange way. Like, I don't think I think of it the way other people do. Like, I think it just, once you have it, it's this thing that happens.
Yeah.
It's not a thing you do. If
No,
you know, you know what to, you know what
exactly.
to do in certain situations. You just kind of do it. These things start to happen without you putting too much effort into them, and all of a sudden you've got a 6'1" for 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel I absolutely, like, that's the, even as a diabetic, because I know that you're a non-diabetic. I know that you're very like hands-on with your daughter's like type 1 diabetes. So it's almost like you're diabetic. But I feel the same way. I feel like diabetes or anything. I think anything that you have, any disease, any long-term illness that you have it. Like it's just, it is what it is. Like there's no point, once things just kind of start working for you, you just kind of roll with it, and everything to me just starts falling in place. You got to put a little bit of work into it at the beginning, but then it becomes second nature, and it just is what it is.
Yep.
Like, yeah, no, it's I genuinely forget a lot to say, oh, by the way, I have diabetes. Like if I'm talking to a new doctor, being a diabetic isn't the first thing that comes out of my mouth, and it should be. There's, when you're speaking to a medical professional, hey, I'm a type 1 diabetic and I have Crohn's, should be one of the first things that come out of my mouth. But a lot of the time, it's not something that comes out of my mouth, because it's just,
I don't know,
something
Kate,
that
you've got a lot to lead with. You're good. You could lead in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Kate, listen, keep thy shop and thy shop will keep thee. That's a Poor Richard's quote.
Okay.
So I think Ben Franklin was saying, take care of your body and your body will take care of
it
you.
will keep you.
Yeah.
I think it's good advice.
Oddly hefty man as an older person for having that thought, but whatever. It's okay. He was full of good ideas back then, before people got a chance to have do you think he was smart or just the first one? You know what I mean?
I think he was just the first one.
Because some of this is really, really common sense. Just like stuff you'd look at and go, yeah, obviously. No?
Yeah. But that's a lot of the case. I think people have become famous off of that. Like you talk to any kind of self-help guru and they're just all spouting common sense. Everything that they talk about is not new news. It's just,
they might
they're
just
saying
be
it in a
reading
way that
from this,
people understand.
to be honest. Hear no ill of a friend, nor speak any of an enemy. That's interesting. So if I hear something bad about you and we're friends, I don't absorb that. And if I have somebody I don't like, I don't speak poorly of them. This is it. This man's a genius. He's been dead for hundreds of years. No one thinks of him. That's all I'm saying.
No one thinks of him.
Your life's not that important. Relax.
No, it's not. Everyone's like so hopped up on trying to leave a legacy. I don't think they thoroughly really understand what leaving a legacy actually means.
My point, Kate, if we don't remember Benjamin Franklin, really, you're going to be okay. That's all. Yeah. No, we have a very odd relationship now with what we think of as the world knowing us. Because of like social media, and it feels like everyone has this idea that everyone's aware of what they think now because they post it somewhere or it's on some social media place. I have to tell you, I reach a lot of people and I really don't reach many people at all in the grand scheme of how many people there are. So, a person on their Facebook page or on their Instagram page, they're not really talking to as many people as they think they are.
No.
So that's something to keep in mind. You're not spreading your genius everywhere. It's three of your friends and two of them are probably like, oh my God, this guy won't stop.
Already. Yeah.
Like, I mean, how many people follow people on Facebook just because they're like, look how irritating Gene is. And everybody's like, I know, it's hilarious.
I know. I just can't stop watching.
Like, Gene's in his house. He's like, I'm leading a nation. And I'm like, all right, okay.
Yeah, okay, so, toodles. Yeah.
I'm sure there are a fair amount of people who listen to me because they think like, that guy's so wrong. I enjoy listening to it. So,
enjoy listening. Yeah.
Whatever. You're not doing what you think you're doing.
No.
I also believe that, that line I talked about earlier about where, polite society rests and where you might be, like, I think I'm on your side of that line.
I hope so.
Yeah. I don't think
better company.
I might not be as far, like you might be pretty.
No.
I don't think I could find you on the first day after I crossed over the line, but But I think that's why these conversations exist on the podcast, because as you start talking about things, I don't brusque up against any of them. Like I did not feel judgmental towards you once in the last hour and a half. And I think that if you would have tried to go tell this story to other people, they would be like, well, let's not say that. We don't want kids to hear that you had sex.
Yeah.
Or, we don't want anybody to know that you did drugs. Or,
Yeah.
like it's just, and I think it really is. I mean, if everyone's listening, when Cate needs to hear herself reflected in other people, and when you don't let her hear that, it's hard for her, and it's hard for you when you're not reflected in other people. You have to let people talk. I don't know, people who are online and look perfect. Those aren't probably real people. They're probably just showing you the one really great part of their life,
Yeah. So. And it's really toxic. Like, it's really, really toxic to think, because then people start thinking that that's what they need to be. And then
it's hard to attain perfection.
It really is. It's the greatness as well as the downfall of social media, is that everyone is so interconnected now that you can kind of find like-minded people like you where you couldn't before. But then you also find this weird, pedestal, like people on pedestals, that it's really hard to obtain that kind of perfection.
Well, I think sharing online is valuable if you just share reality. And then exactly. And then people can sift through that on their own. And there are people who are trying to be famous and they want to look perfect. And that stops, I think, their content from being valuable, to be perfectly honest. And then all you're really attracting is, young people who think the world might still be perfect one day. You don't have one adult. You know what I mean? Like, not one adult is looking at you going, oh, I can get my butt that size. The adults are like, I got to pay for my stuff. Like, I need food. I don't have time to, how many deep knee bends do I have to do before my ass gets that big? I don't have the free time for that.
I don't have time. I do not have time.
And by the way, if you'd all stop watching that person on Instagram, they wouldn't have time either. So, you get in that weird kind of, I don't know, like, what are you doing and who are you doing it for? It's all just, look, I make this podcast because I think it helps people. But it's also a business. It makes money. You know, there are days when I get up and I think I'm going to have this conversation today because it's going to be really important and people are going to get a lot out of it. I think that almost every day, honestly. But there's a small percentage of me that's like, I need to make content to put an ad on. Right? You're all just lucky I'm a decent person, because seriously, because if not, there'd be 12 ads on each one of these episodes.
Yeah. And
you all have heard something where you know what I'm talking about, where you're like 6 minutes into it and the guy's like, glycine. You're like, glycine, what is this? Like, well, glycine is, and you're like, Jesus, are we ever going to get to Cate? And then, then Cate comes on and it's got 6 seconds to talk because the ads are so much. I could do that. I could probably do it tomorrow. Doesn't seem valuable to me.
No, it's
because
not.
Then I don't think you'd listen. And then it's all gone. So
it's gone.
Yeah. Poof. I want this to exist because I want someone to hear you and reach out and be like, I heard Cate and I want to be on the podcast because of that. Because you have no idea how many really interesting conversations you all have heard on this podcast that started with a private note to me that says, hey, I heard this girl say she took heroin on your podcast and that made me feel like I could be on. But then that person talks and doesn't ever mention heroin. So you have no idea how great it is to just be yourself and be honest. And Cate, you've helped a lot of people today. You just don't even know it yet. So thank you very much. And you gave me a place to put my ad. So right on. I'm just teasing.
Yes. Yes.
Plus, Canadian women, there's something there. I haven't figured it completely out yet, but you're all different in a weird way. I haven't figured it all out yet, but
I don't know.
I think it's good.
I feel the same way about Americans as a whole.
Do you?
Like, because you guys you're not different, but you're different. Yeah. And it's weird. I don't understand it because a lot of us sound the same, but we're not. And
you abooted a couple of times today. I appreciated that. You were like a boot.
Did I?
Yeah, you just.
Did I say a boot or did I say about?
No.
Because so this is the thing.
Stop it, Cate. You did not say about.
The East Coasters are the ones that say a boot. They're the ones, not all of them, Newfies especially, are the ones that kind of sound a little bit funny for the most part.
So, okay, fair. You didn't say a boot. You said about, but you
about.
You Canadian the ooh in the middle. I don't know how to put it exactly.
I don't know how to. I know, but the people saying it's a boot, they're taking it from the East Coast.
Okay.
You can get like hosers, which are also like they're Canadians. It's more. And it's not derogatory. I don't find it a derogatory
I saw
term.
the movie.
If anyone calls me a hoser, I'm like, yeah, I am. But like, there's a very like Canadian accent whenever you start like, oh, you're a hoser. Like it's just a very. You're like, yeah, no, you're a Canadian. I know what you are, not just because you just said a very Canadian term, but no, you actually have a Canadian accent. So there is like a very specific Canadian accent that tends to be mostly outside of cities, not along the US border. I find that we start sounding a lot more American the closer to the borders we get.
Makes sense.
But the more north you get is where you start the Canadian isms as well as the Canadian accent is really honed in on.
I have one more real question before I let you go.
Okay.
And I've kept you much longer than I said I was going to. I apologize. Are there people in your life, professionally or personally, who don't know any of this about you?
A lot of the majority of people know what I want them to know. So there's nobody in my life, Tyler included, that knows the entire story.
Right.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the time it depends on where they've entered into my life. But like even my mom, and I'm close with my mom now. We're very close, which is bananas to think about because of what we've gone through together, like me growing up and what have you. But even she doesn't know all the ins and outs of it. She has the best understanding of it. But even she doesn't know all the ins and outs of it. And it's because I keep it close to me.
Yeah.
But it's not something you sit down with to people at dinner and be like, yeah, so I tried to off myself back when I was 14 and man, what a trip. Like, it's not really, because it's such a lot of what I've been through is very taboo, that it's not normal conversation that you have,
so
right?
I'm
very open.
I'm so sorry. The rest of that question to me is like, if like take a coworker, for instance, like not that you would go to work and be like, hey, did you want to hear about the time I thought to kill myself when I was 14?
Yeah.
Like, not that you would say that, but I mean, are there just like, is there a person in your life who would hear this and be like, wait, Cate, the girl I eat lunch with? Are you serious? Like, do you come off like totally normie to people in some aspects of your life?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's because I'm really good at reflecting what they want to see a lot of the time. So yeah. Oh God, yeah. I don't give a shit. Like that's not, it's, I don't care. But absolutely that there would be people listening to this being like, I thought I knew that chick and clearly I did not know that chick. What the fuck?
There's part of me that thinks that one day this recording will be used in a court case.
Which is cool. That's fine. I feel like there's a lot of things that could be used against me, and it is what it is. I feel.
Dear Scott, we need a copy of that recording you did with Cate.
I guess.
Yeah, she killed a fisherman with a seal. It was horrible. I don't even want to explain how it happened, but it was terrible. So, okay. Well, listen, this was terrific. I for anyone else listening, if you're as fucked up as Cate is, please come on the podcast.
Yeah, please come on.
I mean, I'm just teasing you.
We need a group. Yeah. We need to show that there's more of us out there, because there are more of us out there, Scott.
I also don't mean fucked up. I mean, like, who have been through things and are willing to talk about them. You know, for
and
fun,
then it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay to go through a lot of fucked up shit. And at the end of the day, if you want to, you will come out the other side. And it's not to say that, like, if you don't want to, that you're weak or anything like that. But I feel like you can go through a lot of shit and you can still find a meaningful relationship, buy a house. Scott, I don't even have my high school diploma, and I work as a professional. I've traveled the world. I've been through a lot of that should have seen me dead. And for all intents and purposes, I've kind of checked off a lot of check marks that people growing up think in order for you to make it as an adult, these are the things you need to do. I've accomplished that, but I've just done it in an odd way.
I have to say the least shocking thing you've said today is I don't have a high school diploma. I was like,
I don't have a high school diploma.
That makes sense. Yeah. So,
I don't. I dropped out. I got like halfway kicked out, and then I dropped out. And
last question.
Finished it.
I said last question, then I asked the question, and I'll second the last question. Do you ever think about having kids?
The conversation has come up. I have been pregnant, and the conversation has come up. I am cognizant that I don't know how good of an idea that is. More so because of what's already been established with my mental health. I don't know if postpartum is a good idea for me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it is more likely to happen, like to have some postpartum trauma and what have you. I definitely think it is something that needs to be considered. And I will probably my kid. Like I like to think I would be a really cool mom, but I'd say if they would be crying to me, I'd be like, I don't know what the crying about. And not like in that thing where where parents are like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, why? Like, tell me what's wrong with you. I would genuinely be like, I don't understand what you're saying because I don't understand. So I think I could put a lot of trauma on my own kids. But I still think I could be a pretty cool mom because I've been through it all. And
yeah. No, I hear,
and I'm easygoing.
I think you answered exactly how I expected you to. You have a lot of introspection, and I didn't think you'd say much different. Maybe you just be cool Aunt Cate who knows where the Coke is. Maybe that would be
which
enough.
I already am. I'm that was the big thing. So for years, I've always been like anti-kids, really cool aunt, and that's what I am. Like, so I've got like 2 nephews, and then I've got like a few best friends that have babies, and they're like all my nieces and nephews. So I'm like Auntie Cate to a lot of little kids.
Nice.
And I love it because they also get to go home to their parents and, like come see me if you want to go get a tattoo. Like,
sounds totally like a bad joke, but it's a lot of seriousness. No kidding. There are times as parents, I'm just like, what was I thinking?
What was I
dear God, thinking? Everyone needs something. And I'm never right about anything, which is fascinating. And I find myself standing in my home sometimes going, a lot of people seem to agree with things I say sometimes. It's shocking that you all haven't agreed with me once ever. Just like I've never said anything sensible. Is that right? So anyway, if I'm you, I don't do it, but whatever. Don't listen to me. Thank you, Cate, very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. It's been a blast.
A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. Thanks also to the Contour Next One blood glucose meter. Visit contournext.com/juicebox. And of course, you can get your tickets and learn more about Touched by Type 1 at touchedbytype1.org. Also, you can find them on Facebook and Instagram. It's a pretty long episode, so I'm going to get out of here. Just say thank you for listening. Let you know if you're enjoying the Juicebox podcast, please tell a friend. If you like this episode of After Dark, there are a lot more After Dark episodes. Head over to the Facebook page, Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes. Go to the feature tab. There's a whole list of them there, or you can find them on juiceboxpodcast.com. If you're listening in a podcast app right now, just search Juicebox Podcast. Juicebox is one word. And After Dark. Again, those are 2 words. So Juicebox, 1 word, podcast, 1 word, after, 1 word, dark, 1 word, Juicebox Podcast, After Dark. They should all pop right up in front of you. I made it sound much more difficult than it is.